Now, building and materials has become really, really hard in the last 6 months, 9 months. What are the long-term effects on property? Because we've definitely seen the short-term, but what are the long-term effects on property? Stay tuned.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Good, Bill. Good weekend?
Yeah, really good weekend. We were celebrating the Queen last night. A tremendous 70 years on the throne.
That's just incredible. And you made it in a national newspaper yesterday, Saturday.
Yeah, I did. It's true. I actually, I didn't even know about it. And yeah, I got a couple of nice messages from some friends, family. It was really nice.
People are still pumping that newspaper, aren't they?
Yeah, who would have thought? Someone actually picked me out of the hard copy.
Yep, out of the hard copy and sent it over.
There you go.
So congratulations. But mate, what do you this is your topic this morning, Billy. What do you want to talk about with building? Because it's pretty it's certainly on the edge of everyone's lips. Everyone is talking about this. The effects of material costs, the labour costs, the building. What do you know?
I thought it was really interesting, and I'm going to share a screen with you this morning. You were talking with a developer last night. This came into an article this morning. I thought it was fascinating that the amount of new builds being approved, mainly semi-detached and apartment blocks, is on a downward trend from this time last year, March 21 to March 22 quarter. And there's a couple of reasons for it. But what we're going to do is share you a screen here, and you're going to be able to see some of this data because it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, wow. So what year did that start, that graph?
That's from 2007.
About 15 years.
2007, yeah. So they're mainly looking at the last couple of years. But as you can see, it's really taken a hit from its peak in sort of late October, early 21. Sorry, yeah, late 2020, early 21 to now. It's really taken a hit. And there's a couple of reasons for it, which is interesting.
So the biggest low on that graph would have been the GFC, the global financial crisis. So this really is a financial crisis for property. When you look at the amount of DAs that are in, so this is DAs getting approved, is it?
Yep, this is dwelling units approved, seasonally adjusted. So
now it is a concerning one, Billy, because normally in a rising property market, you see these DA applications rise as well. So people had a really good capital growth period for the last 2.5 years. And then normally that would activate a lot of sites that were not developable before. Because the prices have gone up so much, they are developable now. It's activated those sites, which then starts activating DA approvals. This is concerning because it's gone completely the other way from where it should.
Yeah, and you were saying, to give people an idea of what these prices are looking like, some of the costs that have gone up that were talked about is structural timber used in these projects have gone up 34% over a 12-month period, which is, it's gone up an extra third, right? So you factor that in, and no doubt timber's not the only cost that's gone up, labor particularly. You were talking with a developer, how that looks once the project's finished, it's almost an extra third on the purchase cost, right?
Which is, last night the conversation I had was 30, 40%, 30, 40%. And I was like, yeah, that's terrible. But when he quantified it to me and said a house that he was going to build for 650 grand is now costing him 950 grand, I was like, that's big. That's just huge. When you're when you're building sort of 50, 100 houses, 200 houses, whatever they're building, that really adds up. So it's stinging.
It is stinging. Do you know what the other thing is? These guys are making their bread and butter out of this. No, just imagine what it's like for your everyday Aussie that maybe doesn't have the advantage of buying in bulk or sourcing some of these, sourcing the labor they need. It's costly. It really is.
And I think it gets to a stage where if you can't pass on these rises, you can't produce the product. So it's getting to this critical mass now where we're seeing that in these DA approvals, that there's developers simply saying, well, are buyers going to pay the increased price? No. Well, let's not even put the DA in. So it's starting to have a cripple effect on our housing market, which is good in some ways. The lack of stock helps with capital growth. The lack of stock helps with rental prices, growth in rental prices. But it's bad because it affects affordability for the people of Australia. So we need to have a certain amount in our pipeline coming in.
Yeah. I've got another one for you as well. Annual changing costs for inputs into the housing construction industry, March 2022. So there you go.
What?
That's from 70s to date. We haven't seen sort of prices like this in decades.
So what's that again?
Annual change in costs for inputs into the housing construction industry, March 2022 of recent, yeah.
So in the 70s was that last rise that we can see there?
Yeah, there's been a couple of big peaks, off the back of major economic crises, I guess you could call them. But we haven't seen costs like this, particularly in our last decade since, sort of GFC time. But that's half of what it is now.
And look, I think that's some of those graphs are from 30 years ago. So, it's really this generation, or the generations of today, really haven't seen this sort of cost escalation in the marketplace. Now, I've got to say something. I don't even think we're halfway through that graph on that rise. I don't think we've seen the full brute force of what these price rises are going to do in construction and everything else. Now, the knock-on effect, and what people have to realise with property, the knock-on effect is a long period. It's simply not you put a DA in and you produce it, but people move into the house 3 months later or 6 months later. The knock-on effect is normally a 3 to 5 year pipe. So basically, from these DAs that are being approved now, you're not going to be able to move into that property for probably about a 2 or 3 year period at best. Yeah. At best from that DA approval process. So there's going to be this huge hangover of lack of property coming into the marketplace, which means the prices are going to go up in rentals and potentially in sales, which, we also don't want to affordability get hard. Another thing, Billy, is the labour shortage.
Yeah, that's it. And the labour shortage is kind of what's driving this. So this particular article talked about what's happened, record low interest rates combined with the government's schemes trying to push people to go ahead and build their own property has sort of exorbited all labour in that sort of capacity, and kind of made the shortage a lot worse. So they've actually, as this episode started, as I mentioned, they're starting to reel everything back in with these approving these applications, and just trying to get a bit of a firm hand on it.
It's interesting because we, in the first 6 months of COVID, Australia sent, I believe, almost 1 million people, 1 million immigrants back to their countries. And that took a huge labour force out of Australia to get stuff done. And then when they program for these guys to come back, they're talking about 150 or 200,000 people a year. It's going to take up to 3 to 5 years to get back just to where we were with our labour shortage. And, retirement villages, not just construction, but, there's a lot of labour that's been taken out that makes it harder to get shit done.
Well, I've got one more for you, and I like how you touched on sort of a pipeline. You've got to be feeding the next couple of years ahead all the time. So year-on-year change in active projects by state. This is April 2022 compared to April 2021. So 12-month difference here. The only one that's sort of reasonably in the green is New South Wales, funny enough. But you can see on a national scale, we're down 10%. And Queensland and WA and almost ACT are almost down 25%. So down a quarter.
And one more thing, which is handbraking the building construction, is also compliance, the cost of compliance. So our fair trading minister is cruising around making life harder and building and insisting on better quality buildings, which is great. But when you look at it on an international scale, we to build something out in Australia, the level of difficulty for a developer with compliance is absolutely incredibly hard, again, compared to everywhere else internationally. So that costs money because, to deliver that project takes longer. And having people running around. I got a mate of mine that was a plumber for one of the biggest, for 30 years, one of the biggest developers in the country. And I was talking to Ken about this, and the software that they have to use, that they had to purchase for compliance, cost them upwards of $300,000-400,000 a year to run. Just the software. Every single junction of every single pipe, they have to label and they have to photo the quality of the job to comply.
Yeah, it's big, and no doubt, insurance, things like that. It's not getting easier. That's for sure.
Well, half your job, you're a photographer and tagging and labeling stuff, rather than actually just getting the plumbing in and getting onto the next job. So it's going to cost a lot more.
It's not getting any easier. That's the scary part.
What's the good news? Have we been negative Nancy on the whole thing, or what's the good news out of this? Employment's low.
Employment's low. I think we're doing well. We're on a recovery. For a country, we've navigated the times well, but these are the things that have got to be pointed out. Sometimes not always the positives, but it's interesting to look at. Luke made a good point. Look for an established property. There are opportunities everywhere you look, even in a good market, a bad market. So, out of all of this, just keep your eyes peeled.
Yep, they're the things we've got to work on. And also, I think another silver lining in the cloud is if there's less stock in the marketplace, it's less reluctant for the marketplace to actually implode. So it's actually good news to insulate the Australian property market with less new buildings coming on the market, in a way.
Yeah. Great time to be a tradie. That's another one.
Plumber, electrician. Well, these guys are not wanting for work, are they?
Yeah, it's a great time. But that's a wrap. That's a wrap on the show.
Thank you, Billy Bob.
Thank you, sir. And God bless the Queen.
You loved it last night, huh?
Yeah, it's good. What a show! What a show!
You
What a
loved
special occasion! It was If you
any
haven't
particular
watched
highlight
it,
that you loved?
I thought Alicia Keys performing New York was exceptional. She was very good on the piano and looked stunning. That was my highlight, Mark.
Mate, there you go. God save the Queen.
That's it. Have a good week.
Thanks, Billy. Take care, everyone. Have a great week, and good luck to builders out there. Keep your belts tight and passing on those costs. You got to.
To sign off your quote? If you can't pass